fine, got out the money. And the guy looked and said, well, we fucking paid you, what's wrong with you? He said, it's not that. He said, don't you know what, I can't imagine what it must be like for you guys. He said, I work in this fucking hotel, I'd love to smash a room up. So Peter said, oh, is that all it is? Well, go and take one of the rooms and go and smash it up. We're leaving in 15 minutes and bring me the bill.
It was rock and roll. It was all about the decadence. How could you not like having limos and jets and women and, you know, the Beatles hanging out with you every night and Stevie Wonder and this and that, you know, and the champagne and it was fun.
Yeah, I think they sort of pretty much, you know, set the industry standard there, raised the bar. In fact, it only actually increased the interest in them because you stopped thinking about them just totally in this musical sense. You know, they were just a kind of spectacle, and it was just a bombardment of light and sound. And now there was a completely new dimension to this group, this appalling behaviour and excess. And in a way, it kind of provided this incredibly rich soap opera.
The band returned home exhausted from months on the road. Robert and Jimmy took to a secluded spot in Wales called Branrar. The isolation of the beautiful countryside was the perfect place to write and inspired the organic acoustic-based material that comprised much of the next album, Led Zeppelin 3. Later, the band and crew convened at Headley Grange, a house in the English countryside.
It was this old farming sort of mansion. There were 4 floors. So it was like walking into almost the lobby of a hotel.
It was built in the 18th century and it had about 10 bedrooms, very spooky, especially early in the morning with the mist, you know, and this black dog that had died the week before. That's where Zeppelin got that track from. There was a dog that died in one of the rooms, and big baronial type banquet hall and huge fireplaces, huge basement which ran the length and breadth of the house.
The main thing is that they're all together, so therefore you don't waste time. You haven't got 4 people and an engineer and well, there wasn't a producer, Jimmy was the producer, but an engineer, coming from different parts to be at a studio to start work at a certain time. They were there, and when they wanted to start, they started.
The appeal of recording like that is that you're never under a red light. The place is yours to come and go as you wish, whatever time if you want to get up at 2 in the morning and record, you can. So you're not constricted by any time parameters. And it's a very leisurely approach to recording.
Things were getting light on the radio. You had Carly Simon, James Taylor. The people were wearing earth tone colors, so they started getting a little lighter too.
When you think about it, a large portion of their songs were folk songs, with just 12-string and acoustic guitars. There was a lot of folk in Zeppelin, believe it or not. Probably the heaviest folk band that ever existed.
Work was progressing nicely, with songs written and recorded all in the same location. Led Zeppelin 3 was released at the end of October 1970, and as with their 2 previous albums, the critics panned it. They charged that the record's largely acoustic format was an attempt to piggyback on the success of the popular new group Crosby, Stills and Nash.
I think they were hurt by the thing. I mean, they're selling more records than anyone else. They were sending out more shows than anyone else. They were earning more than anyone else. And yet all they were doing was getting pummeled by the press for no reason at all, because what the press was saying didn't match up to the statistics.
I know that he was very sensitive about what they wrote about him, and it really upset him a lot. Because he was one of the greatest guitar players ever, and how dare they judge him, you know?
Led Zeppelin recognized what really mattered most, their fans. Though it didn't sell as well as Led Zeppelin 2, their phenomenal success was showing no signs of abating, with the 3rd album topping the charts for 4 consecutive weeks. Before long, Page and Plant found themselves back in Wales at Branrar, writing new material for their 4th album. After a brief recording stint in London, the band once again headed out to Headley Grange to continue rehearsals and recording.
Trained and also inspirational fellows, waiting for a moment to walk in. That was the difference with them. Nothing was truly planned, but they were holding in their minds and hearts and down their spines especially Jimmy Page and John Paul Jones, a lot of knowledge. Percy Plant obviously had this gift, and Bonzo was, in actual fact, at the time, no one had played Das. So you put those four fellows together and you never knew quite what was going to happen. You knew it was going to be good. And so astounding, you felt like some weird cipher who wasn't ready to catch something that had never happened before. And how do I catch this and not let them down? How do I deal with this? It was so big, terrific and wonderful.
Soon they were working in earnest on an evocative power ballad, a song that would unquestionably become their anthem, and in the process become one of the most played songs on rock radio, Stairway to Heaven.
Until the whole band comes in on the sixth verse, it's a folk song in A minor, and it's a lovely chord sequence, and there's a little mellotron in the back and a flute, and until Bonzo comes in, it could be Peter, Paul and Mary on steroids.
Well, it was recorded on location at Headley. No, Andy Johns was doing the engineering.
Now, a lot of people with a song like that would take 2 or 3 days. It took them 2 hours. And then it was done. And you knew, because you had worked with them before, this is a basis for something really quite special. And if you think about it, Stairway to Heaven, there are instruments, there's the drums, there's the bass, there's the acoustic guitar, there is the Gibson guitar, there are the 2 direct 12 strings, after that Percy's voice, and recorders at the beginning and the end, and that's it, pal.
I knew it was good, and I didn't know it was going to be, almost like an anthem, but I knew it was the gem of the album, sure.
Peter called and said, JJ, he said, I want you to hear something that we've just finished. So he sent Richard Cole to come get me at the station and took me directly to the studios. They wanted to hear what I felt about this, and they put it on, and I just said to him, gee, this is the best thing they've ever done. This is just going to be incredible.
Led Zeppelin 4 was released in November 1971 and quickly rose to number 2 on the charts. Stairway to Heaven was the album's highlight, but at 7 minutes and 55 seconds, it was much too long for the radio. Atlantic pressed for a shorter version.
Stairway was going to be a monstrous record. I mean, I think they made it quite clear to Atlantic, don't fuck around with us this time. This is not going to be a single. And also they knew that if people wanted to buy Stairway to Heaven, they'd have to buy the whole album.
It became an industry really with Led Zeppelin when Peter Grant turned it from a singles selling commodity to albums. And that did bring a change that they could play for 3 hours and they could also sell albums.
Led Zeppelin's notorious manager, Peter Grant, was also throwing his weight around with concert promoters. Where bands once received 50 to 60% of a show's profits, Peter asserted that the rules had changed. From now on, a whopping 90% would go to Led Zeppelin. Take it or leave it.
With Peter Grant, their pioneering way of altering the structure of the major tours in America, where it was the artist rather than the promoter who got the main source of revenue from those. Groups and artists were ripped off in every way, from record companies to promoters. In every aspect, groups were ripped off, and Peter Grant wasn't having that.
I had nothing but admiration for the man, and he never ever forgot anyone, no matter how big or how small on the ladder, that he felt was good for the band and or for him. He was with you 100%.
We owe so much to that man. He changed the balance for musicians to, promoters with record companies, etc. I mean, one man. So that is creative. His vision was amazing. His dedication was with Led Zeppelin, and between them they had a very powerful tool.
Don't cross him now. No, don't cross him.
He could be really mean when he wanted to be, not to me, but just to other people, He's such a big man and had such a big presence about him that if you ever saw him enraged, you would be terrified of him.
The promoters had no choice but to buckle under Grant's new demands. Led Zeppelin embarked on their 8th tour of the United States, raking in more money than ever. Back in LA, they returned to their favorite haunts, the Riot House, the Whiskey, and the